There are 5 stages of burnout that you talk about here. I want to kind of address these quickly. The honeymoon phase, the onset of stress, entry to chronic stress, burnout, and then habitual burnout. So let's start with the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
Help people understand, because I think people need to identify where they're at, right? So because I'm not sure that people always understand it. So help us understand the honeymoon phase a little bit.
Yeah. So the honeymoon phase, right, is when you start a new role, you're starting a new job, and you're really excited. You have all of this energy that comes with starting that new job. And so you start to recognize, here are all the fun things that are coming from that. You all have probably experienced it. And I know I thrived in that. Like for me, I love drinking through a fire hose, which probably says a lot about me.
Bring it on. I got it. Okay.
Yep. And so the next phase, right, is really when we start looking
Onset of
about
stress. Yeah.
yeah, the onset of stress. You start to recognize you're in the role. You start to see, let's say, similar signs or symptoms that you're recognizing are, let's say there's not collaboration and you're starting to feel, a communication breakdown. Think people aren't talking to each other. There's a high acceleration for this project. They assigned a project to you and you've got to get it done in a certain amount of time. So you're like, I have 100 days to get this project off the ground. And you just start to have a little bit of that stress of how am I going to get this done?
Entry to chronic stress.
Yep. The next piece becomes that feeling becomes more frequent. So you're recognizing you're in that project. You have to get it done within 100 days. You're 30 days in. You can't get the resources that you need to get it done, nor do you have the full budget required to actually get it done. And so you start to have higher levels of frequency on what that looks like. You're starting to feel physical symptoms now for you of your let's say you're feeling nauseous, you're getting headaches, those little signs or symptoms that are making it more challenging for you on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, phase 4, burnout.
Yep. So in your burnout, what you're experiencing there is you're starting to feel disengaged, right? You're having a harder time being engaged in that specific project. Sometimes this is where the cynicism will start to come in a little bit. It starts to emerge for people. You'll hear that for folks that are experiencing the burnout stage, there's this rise of heat for them in a meeting or in a conflict where things that probably didn't bother you before are suddenly becoming more challenging for you to cope with. And so you might lash out or respond to an email in a way that you normally wouldn't.
You mentioned the word cynicism. I think this is really good. Really, by the way, really, really good stuff. Cynicism is really, really important here. Do you also, during this phase 4 burnout stage, do we start to see an increase in sarcasm too? Is that possible, or that was not one of the things that the research indicated?
No, I think what you're seeing in the sarcasm increase is a coping mechanism, right? Your cynicism is increasing, and what happens is that the sarcasm starts to emerge as a way for you to express that cynicism.
Got it. Okay. Phase 5 is, and I've never heard this term before, is habitual burnout. Mm-hmm. Help us understand that phase 5.
For some people, they're finding themselves in burnout as a constant state of being. It's become a new normal, right? So when we talk about burnout as those 4 factors, right? The relationship, the caregiving, right? The parental, and then work. When all 4 of those aspects are constantly full on an ongoing basis, you're just surviving. And habitual burnout becomes where your body is just continuing to deal with the higher levels of stress over and over, day after day. And I think what happens in those situations is people have, and I talk about it, which is like a learned helplessness. And so Martin Seligman has this, wonderful research. And I think one of the things that we recognize in that is people feel like there's nothing else they can do, and this loss of hope. And I'm trying to remember, I think it's Snyder that has the research around hope theory, which essentially is, right, in order for people, hope is an action, like it's a behavior. So what ends up happening for people to have hope is they have pathways to have agency for their life. And one of the things, if you bridge that research with the research of, Christina Maslow, and you say that it really has to do with being able to have control or autonomy over your life. Well, if you don't have that, it becomes a key ingredient for burnout, and then people lose hope in that process. And I think there's a deep a deep connection then when people are feeling habitual burnout to have many other mental health symptoms that come from there as well.